Hi there, and welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture. I'm your host, Justin Steele, and with me tonight is my very special junior guest star, Brody Wolf. How you doing today,
Hi,
Brody?
I'm doing good. I'm excited.
Good. And we're about to do an episode that I've been wanting to do for a while now. I was with Stranger Things right from the beginning, and I know that you just came to it. So, I've been, for everybody who's interested, Brody's mom, Meg, is a reoccurring guest star in the show, so you might recognize her from some episodes. But we're just going to kind of jump right in. For those interested, though, I have been covering Stranger Things since day one on Wicked Horror, so you can find my written responses and critiques over there. But, I was pretty lucky. My editor, I knew that Stranger Things was coming out, but there was very little we knew about it at the time, other than Winona Ryder was going to be making her comeback into pop culture, so to speak. She had done little things like Black Swan and stuff like that, but I'm a big fan of Winona Ryder. I have been ever since Beetlejuice way back in the day, and I was excited. My editor, though, had said, hey, is anybody wanting to check out this new show on Netflix, Stranger Things? So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And from the moment, the opening credits, everything about this show speaks to me in terms of I had two older brothers growing up, and my older cousin Joe, they were always watching one horror movie after another. So I've been a fan of 80s horror movies forever. Plus, we grew up on The Goonies and E.T. Now, Brody, have you seen E.T. and The Goonies and all that? Okay, so you know going in like that. But what did you think? Me coming in, I saw those credits, Ford Pintos and Winona Ryder. I was hooked, line and sinker. But what did you think coming in when you first started watching season one?
At first, I was like, this is going to be really scary. But after, I met Will, Lucas, Mike, and Dustin at the D&D table, I'm like, okay, it's my favorite show ever now.
Nice. And yeah, I love the way the show is structured. I feel like it's a very fast-paced show. One thing I commented about one of my early reviews was I feel like every time there's always one arc each season. Like in season one, it's the disappearance of Will Byers, and by the end, whether or not they're going to rescue him. But throughout the season, there's all these little mini arcs, and it's like every time all the characters kind of get paired off. Whether it's Joyce and Hopper or Jonathan and Nancy, etc. And everybody always gets a puzzle piece, and it only takes a couple episodes, I feel like, before they figure it out. And I like that it doesn't drag out all season other than the major arc. So did you feel like it was pretty fast paced? Were you like binging it? Like, I got to watch the next episode right now.
I was binging it.
Yeah.
After the next episode, I'm like, next episode now. When I had to stop, because I was getting too late, I was like, what do I do now?
Now, I'm sure you haven't seen yet. Have you seen ever Firestarter? It's
No.
a Stephen King movie. Your mom, I know, is not the biggest fan of horror movies, but this is a Stephen King movie with a very young Drew Barrymore. Do you know who Drew Barrymore is from E.T.? She was the little sister.
Oh, yeah, I remember her, but I don't know. I don't know
Okay, well, she grew up to be quite a big pop culture star. I'm sure as you get older, you'll start seeing more movies by her. But she plays in it, the Duffer brothers who created Stranger Things. She starred in a movie called Firestarter in the early 80s. It's based on a Stephen King novel, and she has a lot of similar components to Elle. Like the Duffer brothers definitely acknowledge some of their influences were Firestarter, Elfen Lied, which is this crazy animated movie from Japan that is the most insane opening ever. But so I kind of went in with horror as like I'm a big fan of horror movies, and I know that you came over to my house one time and saw all my horror movie posters and all that, and you definitely weren't like you said I had a lot of scary stuff hanging up. So I was impressed when your mom told me that you had started watching Stranger Things. How scary was it for you? Like,
At first, the first scene of the entire show, with the scientists running out, I thought it was terrifying. Like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what's happening?
yeah,
It's like the first exact scene. But after a while, after I started loving the characters, I'm like, it's not scary anymore because I got my pals.
that's
So
right. That's right.
after a while, I didn't get scared at all. It was not even scary after all.
Well, I think then you would be okay watching a movie like Firestarter. There's definitely horror movies where, no offense, buddy, but I think you might be still too young for. But, Firestarter, if you like the story of Elle, the character of Elle, you would definitely see some very similar ideas. It's about a girl who this government agency is chasing, who has these telekinetic powers where she can like move things with her mind, but she also like sets things on fire with her mind and stuff. And it's
Iris.
nothing too graphic. There's definitely some people caught on fire moments, but if you can handle Stranger Things, I think you would be okay with Firestar. And I think you'd really enjoy it. Elfin Lied, though, ironically, the animated movie I was talking about, I don't think you could watch that yet. That's going to be about 5 or 6 years from now. Um, but what other have you watched any other scary movies at all, or horror movies at all, or you just like that this was like the thrill of it right away? So yeah, that had to be kind of intense for you to see this little boy, roughly your age. How old are you now, Brody?
11 and a half.
Oh, so they're very much right on your age, these kids, at least in the first season.
Yeah.
Because I think that they're 11. Are you in middle school now then?
Yeah. I've been in middle school. This is my second year of middle school.
Right. So like you definitely can relate. These are like definitely your pals' age. So in the first season, who were some of your favorite characters? What were some of your favorite moments? Or first, actually, what was the scariest moment to you in the whole
Scary
first season?
for full frustrating. The one I said at the very
At the
beginning.
beginning was the scariest for you?
Science, because I like look away the first time, but now I'm like, it's fine now because like I know what's gonna happen. But
I
like
think
at first
for
I'm
me,
like, just
yeah, right. I think the first time for me in the season that I got genuinely like maybe I was invested a little bit more, it was when Nancy, she climbed into that tree, that portal, the like temporary portal, and she climbed in there and I was like, oh, don't go in there, Nancy. Don't
I
go
know,
in
right?
there.
There's a lot
And
of
then she sneaks in
moments like
there.
that. Like
Yeah,
even like when Will goes to, like no trespassing, like can you read? It says no trespassing. Do you
yeah.
like also they're like racing to Dustin's house? Do you know where your friend's house is? It's not. It's definitely not there.
Definitely.
It,
Well, I will say maybe you're a little bit more responsible, but in the early '80s, we definitely did things we probably shouldn't have. Not reading signs we should have. But no, that moment definitely scared me though when I was like jumping. But what were some of your favorite characters that you bonded with in season one?
Definitely Dustin. I love Dustin.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Dustin's my favorite character from the show.
Speaking about Dustin, I have a pop figure of Dustin.
Nice. That is
From,
so cool. That is so cool. I love it
it's my only Stranger Things pop figure, but I wanted to show it on camera.
for sure. I love
Um,
it.
I also like Lucas. I like how he's like skeptical about Elle. I like how like in the season one, Lucas doesn't like Elle because she's new and because he's like weird and stuff. But also in season two, he like Ghostbuster scene, he doesn't want to be Winston. One, because that's racist, and two, because he was new to the group. But Max joins the group, and she's new, and he likes it, so he learned a lesson.
Sure,
That's what
absolutely.
that's what I
Because I
caught.
do think, it's something, especially when you learn about that age, change can be difficult. And when somebody new is coming through, it's easy to like mistrust somebody right away. And, especially because, you meet this girl who looks kind of weird to them, and that's a lesson there, just because the way somebody looks or something, you can't judge people by their cover. It's such a classic saying anymore, but we're still learning it even today, not just in the early '80s. But I also agree that Dustin is one of my favorite characters, and I'd say over the course of the 3 seasons, I said in one of my reviews that I think Joyce and Hopper are the strength of the show. I think that Elle is the soul of the show, but I think that Dustin is the heart of the show. And I remember in season one of my favorite moments was when he said he's riding the bike, and Mike and he are discussing like friends and how you can have more than one friend, and he's not upset about it or anything. I mean, Mike ends up saying the sweet thing in the end, but Dustin is totally like, hey, it's cool. I understand where I fit in this hierarchy. I understand where I'm at. And Mike is like, no, I can have more than one best friend. And I remember that being one of my favorite moments involving Dustin, but just in general, he's a good comic relief. And of all the kids, I think he seems like the most real kid of the
Yeah,
kids.
yeah. Honestly, I just watched that scene because I was like watching Stranger Things, see how
Hmm.
far. see if I can get, because like I'm at like this meeting's today, so I gotta like watch a lot of Stranger Things episodes to get ready.
For sure.
And I watched through 1 through 6 episodes, almost 6. I'm not done with 6.
Nice. Yeah, it's always good to prep. I did a little prep myself too. In that moment, I think it touches the heartstrings. What would you say though was your favorite moment from the entire first season?
Probably the first one with D&D that like really got me like excited for the show.
Yeah?
Cause I played D&D.
Oh, is that right?
And like when I came in, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this so much.
Nice. I'd say my favorite moment though of the entire season, and it's very an homage to E.T., but when Elle is riding on the bike with Mike and the flipped van sequence, just the first time I was watching this show, I like jumped out of my seat. I was cheering, screaming, loved it. That was definitely my favorite moment of the first season.
There's also another E.T. moment that I caught too. Like that's a good E.T. moment. I didn't really think that was an E.T. moment, but it's a good 80s E.T. moment.
Mm-hmm.
But another E.T. moment too is when Mike and everyone's at school and Elle's the only one in the Wheeler's house and she goes searching around just like he did when the kid was at school. And another E.T. moment is when Mike is showing Elle all her toys just like the boy did with E.T.
Yes, yep. I was almost ready for him to pull out some Reese's Pieces any moment. Yeah, I mean, and that's, a lot of these people like Stephen King, like I said, Firestarter is his work. And have you ever seen Stand By Me?
Nope.
Okay, that's just maybe a smidge older than you. I think you'd be okay watching it, but it's not a horror movie. Stephen King is known for the horror genre, but he's also got these movies out there like The Shawshank Redemption, Dolores Claiborne, that aren't specifically horror, and Stand By Me was one of the first ones. But it's about four kids at about middle school age, and they decide they want to go see a dead body, and because they heard this kid like got hit by a railroad, like they were on a railroad track. They heard this kid's been missing, but there's a rumor that he might be in these bushes somewhere. So these four kids, so it's not really about that though. It's about the kids, like their journey together, and you'll see moments, especially in like season 2 primarily, where they're like walking on train tracks and stuff. I mean, those scenes could be very much lifted from Stand By Me, but a lot, even Stephen King, all these other pop culture homages, E.T., etc., it seems to be really well received, that like the people that created those movies and shows appreciate what the Duffer brothers did. Now, a big thing that happened between seasons 1 and 2 for me was the new It movie came out. And the original It movie took place in the 60s into the 90s, but they've updated it to the 80s. But for me, because I was already a big fan of Stranger Things, the sort of 80s novelty wore off in terms of, them playing at the arcade. I mean, you would have been, you're so young, it's way before your time now. But, when I was your age, it was in the early 90s, but I definitely was a kid in the 80s. So for me, it was a lot of fun to see, the mom driving a Pinto or just hearing the music they played. But I'm curious, being that you were not in existence in the 80s, what do you think about all this 80s stuff? Like, do you think it's cool? Do you kind of laugh at it?
I laugh at it. I'm just like, if it was in our time, this would be so much easier to survive the pandemic, because you can just go on Skype and get as many people as you want. And go like,
sure.
And you guys have anything? And like, you don't need to have a walkie-talkie and have like a signal or anything. Just go up, like, go on Skype and go like, you have anything? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a criticism when, as the late 90s, early 2000s were like happening, a lot of horror fans were like criticizing that like a lot of these events wouldn't work, these 80s movies, or, even though it's a retro 80s show, even a show like this wouldn't work because cell phones would solve all their problems. But considering that they don't have cell phones or Skype or internet, I would say they're pretty innovative, that they're able to like make it all work in the end by just what they have. But yeah, I was curious, if you would think it was funny or whatnot, and the clothes they wear and stuff, it's definitely dated.
I like in season 3, like the clothes that Elle wears.
Oh yeah.
Like there's a lot of famous ones, but I think the most best one that Elle wears in season 3 is like the one with like the black background and like all the different shapes of different colors and stuff. It's
definitely very 80s. Very, I think the mid 80s, because I think that one takes place now in 1985, the third season. And yes, 1985 was definitely the year of neon colors and, outfits with triangles all over them and stuff like that. Still talking about season one, though, as we go through each season, there's always one big loss for the group, whether it's somebody that's connected and knows everything that's going on, or somebody like Barb in the first season. What did you think when we lost Barb?
I was sad. I was honestly sad because I knew she was gone, and the Justice for Barb things when that actually aired, I was I'm good. I'm glad that happened because
Sure.
she deserves that. She's died like that. I honestly liked her as a character. I liked her as a character.
Yeah.
I thought she was a good character, and just her dying right then and there was sad for me.
It was very sad. A couple of people, though, now when we watched season one, when it came out, we weren't sure 100% that Barb was dead. There were a lot of theories out there that she might be, the mind flayer or stuff like that. I think that's pretty much, negated now. But at the time, because how when they found Will at the end of season one, he had that stuff going down his throat. But Barb also did, but she was sort of in a sort of transformation process. It looked because we don't know very much about the Upside Down. We were talking about how you kind of watched a few episodes and were prepping. I prepped too for this episode, and I was kind of researching the Upside Down a little bit more, especially now that it's been 3 seasons. People might know a little bit more about it. You never know, but people still don't really know a lot about the Upside Down. And yeah, at the time, a lot of us thought because something about I forget, there was an ad that came out, but the way that she was set up is very much like a comic book. Now, I can't tell you, I'm not a big comic book guy. I love comic books, but I'm not I could name this issue this year. But apparently it looked like the cover of a comic book. And so people thought that was alluding to she might become the villain, because we don't know the Upside Down, what could happen or what. But now that we know that Barb's gone, yeah, it's very tragic and sad. And I really like the character of Barb too. And then are you ready to move on to chapter 2 or part 2, Stranger Things?
Let's do it.
Did you have any standout favorite characters from season 2?
I really liked Max.
Yeah, Max is great.
I honestly like the feminism in Max, how she was really awesome and could beat everybody in the arcade.
Yeah, for sure. I really see when she first appeared for me, I'm a big Michael Myers fan, Halloween, horror. So I have a pop art thing where she's wearing a Michael Myers mask on top of her head from Halloween, but I definitely was very excited to see that. But yeah, I think it's hard sometimes. As you get older, if you end up starting to watch more horror movies and stuff, you'll see that the horror genre is definitely known to have a lot of sequels. You'll have Halloween's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. And one thing I find it really difficult is to bring new characters into a sequel or a second season that you come to care about just as much as you do the characters that are surviving from the first one. And I think that, Billy, was such a villainous character, but, I do think that they all fit in well. Billy and Max, I thought, fit in really well to this, cast of characters. And yeah, I really like that she was sort of this independent, strong character. Now, I do want to talk to you about the episode where Elle goes off on her own and meets her sister. A lot of people had a lot of issues with that episode, and I'm curious as to what did you think about that episode?
I liked it, but I need more of it because it did not end how it should ended. I was okay, I don't want this now, bye. And then that's the last that we heard the group. That's it. And I just there's no conclusion. Did she go to jail? Is she still out there? What's happening to 8? I don't know.
For sure.
I know.
I think, well, we might talk about some theories at the end for season 4, but I think that she's going to make an appearance in season 4 or part 4, if you will.
I want that to be happen.
Well, it seems like they're going to be, as each season goes along, just like any other horror sequel, it tends to open up the playing field a little bit more. And obviously now we're going to Russia and all that. So I have a feeling, we're going to have to bring in, especially because Elle, I don't want to jump too far ahead into season 3 yet, but, she's losing her powers. So I'm pretty sure that she's going to need some help from her sister to come on in and take care of business. But I liked the episode. A lot of people at the time were frustrated with it, but I think their frustration mainly stemmed, and I could be wrong, but like it seemed like at that moment when you're watching it for the first time that like you really want Elle to be back with the group already. You want her to reunite with Mike. You want her to reunite with Hopper. And so I think people got frustrated because it looked like she was going further away. But I thought it was a really cool idea, especially because it's not so far-fetched. If you could believe the mythology of Stranger Things, that there's a girl out there who has these powers, then I don't think it's so far-fetched to believe she could use these powers to help her find somebody like her sister. And I think a lot of people criticize that, but I thought it was a pretty neat episode. I don't know if I would have felt the same way if by the next episode she had not reunited with the gang, but because I agree with you that it needs to be concluded, but I'm glad that it was just sort of like a preview of what could happen to come. Now, for me, I found it to be a much darker season, and I feel like season 3 ends up lightening up a little bit. But did you find it to be any more scary? Did you have a big scary moment in season 2 like you did with season 1?
Honestly, the tunnels were kind of like grim.
Yeah.
Like under the pumpkin patches, those things were kind of grim and gross, and I thought that was gross. The mind flayer wasn't scary at all. It's just a giant shadow. Season 3, the mind flayer gets much scarier because it's actually physical.
Yeah.
But honestly, like tunnels were the only thing that I thought was scary.
What did you think about the real, see, for me, what I found I was worried about in the season, especially as the last couple episodes happened, Billy kind of coming in and his fight with Steve and all that. Were you scared at all that he might hurt one of the kids or anything?
I was scared. I was like, Lucas, no, Lucas.
Yeah.
But I'm glad Steve stepped in and was like, hey, stop it. And
we should definitely talk about Steve because he's sort of the reluctant hero. He was such a jerk at the beginning, but I really like his arc. I like that he's becoming like a really good guy. He's definitely arrogant, ego, but he always ends up doing the right thing. And I like that, I really liked that too, that season when and what I did enjoy about the second season were the different pairings, how like Elle was with Hopper. I like that Dustin and Steve kind of had because Elle and Hopper ended up living together at the beginning. He had taken care of her from season 1. What?
They're family now.
Correct, yeah. And I really liked that Dustin and Steve had that connection. I thought that was an interesting way to invert some of our expectations of where the show would go. It looked like Nancy had chosen Steve, but I was pretty sure she was going to end up with Jonathan. So it's kind of like, what's going to happen to Steve then? And I'm glad that they were able to find a way. But do you have a preference of Nancy with Steve or Nancy with Jonathan?
Jonathan, 100%. Yeah, I'm glad to go together. Because after season 1, I was like, I don't want a Stancy. I want a Jancy.
So, but do you like Steve though now? Like how he's kind of grown as a character?
Yes, I love Steve as a character. My hair.
Yeah, that's what I think. Season 2, but season 2 was definitely a dark season. I enjoy it. The horror fan of me definitely enjoys the darker elements. But I'm glad that season 3 definitely started to lighten up a little bit. What did you think? About the loss of Bob?
Oh, Bob! I did not see that coming at all. But I actually saw it coming because he was getting chased. I was like, he's gonna die. I didn't want him to die, but I saw it coming. But at the beginning of the show and when the show progressed, I didn't see it coming until that episode came up.
Yeah.
I was really sad because Bob was not like Barb. It was not like a few episodes then you die. It was go through the whole season, then die.
You really get attached to him. You have more time to get attached to him as a person, as a character.
They did it on purpose because with Barb, it was people hated that. And now they're okay, so if we want someone to die again, let's do it right.
Oh, that's the secret of, but that's the secret of any horror movie. People go into horror movies and sometimes they'll be like, oh, it's too slow at first, but it's because they're developing these characters. Because if you don't care about the characters in the second half, you're not scared or you're not as affected if they die or something like that. Do you know that Bob was Mikey from the Goonies?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that or did your mom tell you?
My mom told me, but also he's Samwise, so he's an 80s.
For sure. I guess you would know him from that. Good point. Yeah, no, but I thought he was great in it. And overall though, I really enjoyed the second season. Going into the third season though, what did you think of the third?
I thought it was better than the first two.
I was worried because I'm like, you binge watched them. For me, I had time between to kind of come back, and I was worried that you would, when your mom told me you were binging it, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. But I also was kind of like, ugh, I don't want him to get burned out on it. So you thought it was the best one so far.
Yes.
Nice.
I love Starcourt Mall. It's like a good place for like the final episode to like be on. And
Yeah.
Scoop Ahoy is perfect. I love Steven Scoops Ahoy.
Oh, for sure. I loved all of that. Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. Did you like, now I really liked Dustin. I really liked the two new characters in this one. I really loved Maya Hawke, who was,
Robin.
what was it? Robin, yes. I really liked Robin, and I liked Erica, Dustin's sister. I thought I thought that core group, Dustin, Steve, Robin, and Erica provided much of the comic relief this season, but
I love Erica.
But it definitely was intense when they're down under the tunnels. They're giving them the truth serum. I thought they were really funny. Those were definitely my favorite moments of the season, and I really liked all of it too. I liked that it lightened up a little. I thought it was a lot of fun. But also, I also like talking about the big death of season 3, Alexei. I wasn't attached to him like I was to Barb or Bob, but I did get attached to him. I wasn't as much before, but it did happen. And when I thought, I thought it was heartbreaking, when he's like getting to see a different side of life than what he thought, and to finally relax, and then that happens.
I loved Alexei. I thought he was like a good character.
Yeah.
I thought like nothing's gonna go wrong with him, but then bam.
Yeah.
And I was like, Terminator guy, why must you do this to me?
You're right. That was like a Terminator guy. Have you seen the Terminator?
No, but I know like what he looks like.
For
like,
sure, but you're right. I mean, that's very much what it's like. Now, he came in season 2. I don't think he was in season 1. What was Murray Bauman in season 1?
No, he was
Okay,
season 2. Came back in 3.
And then, what did you think of that character?
Oh, I love Murray. Honestly, I think season 3 was better for Murray.
Yeah.
Especially with Alexei's death with Murray. Murray took it really hard.
I was worried he was gonna get on my nerves, but I actually really did end up liking him too as a character. Did you hear about that voicemail thing that's out there right now?
I was like, I heard about that. I called it, and I'm like, is Hopper that something?
Well, I don't know. So there's a couple things that I researched about this, but I also thought it was really cool. I love stuff like that. But I guess, if you group the numbers, the telephone number itself, if you group the digits, it actually is like a coordinates. It's Russian coordinates if you group the numbers in a certain way. So I think that's pretty cool. But also, what I find most mysterious about it is not that he's talking to Joyce. I think that is true, that like it's Hopper, but he keeps referencing mom in it. I think he referenced it like, hey, if this is mom or Joyce. I'm thinking that there might be a secret code for whoever mom is. I don't know if necessarily he's talking about his literal mom, but I'm always I always overanalyze codes and stuff like that, but I just thought it was very unique to just be like, hey, if this is mom or Joyce, and I think that mom is also a code.
I don't know. I think mom is mom.
You think literal? I'm thinking of the character of Murray Bauman. I don't know. I think mom might mean something. Obviously, depending on how you look at it, the other big death from season 3 was Hopper. But I personally don't think that he's dead. I mean, I watched the post-credit scene, so right away I was like, okay, he's fine.
Hopper. It's Hopper.
But like, I guess a lot of people I know when I talked to some people who watched the show, they did not realize that they didn't watch that post-credit scene. So a lot of people thought Hopper was dead, and I'm like, why do you think that? I thought when they said the Russian at the end, he was like, not the American, or whatever he said, not the American. And I'm like, oh, well, that's got to be Hopper then. How could it not be? But I guess a lot of people were like, oh, it might not be. A lot of people actually thought it was going to be Murray. But I'm like, but now, well, and obviously now that this voicemail, clue or whatever little thing is out there, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be giving that from Russia, leaving a voicemail, so he's obviously alive.
I noticed a pattern. Season 1, Barb dies. Season 2, Bob dies. Season 3, Billy dies. If you're gonna get a role in season 4 and your name starts with a B, you're gonna die.
That's right. Good point. Although we also did lose Alexi, so unless his first name starts something else. But yeah, the odds are not good for the bees out there. Brody, it's probably a good thing you're not on the show, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I just everything about the show I think is so much fun. For me, it's a lot of nostalgic joy. For you, it's new. Like I said, I had two older brothers growing up, and my cousins and stuff. We watched horror movies all the time. So this for you is like that for me, where this is sort of your first horror movie, where you get to finally like see a little bit. But did you like the feeling of like when you asked me before when you came over and you saw like my Halloween posters and stuff like that? Do you get now a little bit more why I enjoy the horror genre? Like in terms of being scared and like the thrill of it. It's
Yes.
like riding a roller coaster or I mean, there's definitely, because I don't like all kinds of horror. There's some horror movies that I definitely am not a fan of. I don't like brutal, gory. I could watch gore if it's like art, but when it's just trying to make somebody sick or grossed out, I really don't like that. I like suspense. I like what's going to happen next. Oh, these characters. And a movie like Firestarter, is one of those, or, the original Halloween, it's not very gory, I don't know yet if you're ready for that one, but I think you could do Firestarter. Your mom said you were asking about how the Russians got the Demogorgon. Do you have any theories?
I heard a theory and I like it that well, when it said like Russia at the end at the post credit scene, it didn't say when. It never said a date. It never said 1950, 1985. It never said anything. It could be from the past. Like you never know. And like some theories, like it was from the past, and they had the Demogorgon all along, and that Demogorgon from season 1 was from Russia. And I think it's a good theory, but I don't buy it that much.
Oh, it's interesting. I hadn't heard this theory. Well, I mean, I'd like to, we can link that back to what I was saying earlier about Barb and how we don't know very much about the Upside Down, and if you think about it, the Upside Down is kind of opposite. So, like, it very well could be that time is different, in the Upside Down, or it can affect things. I mean, it is from a multi-dimension. I mean, I'm pretty sure, I guess this is still in debate too, but for me, I always thought that Elle came across the Demogorgon, the original one, or not, yeah, the Demogorgon, the first one. And it's because that she touched him that he was able to do like the portals and stuff like that. Because I don't think in season 2, the dog version, I forget what they call them, the Debadogs. I don't think they were able to create portals or anything. And I'm thinking that Elle was the reason why that one was a little bit different. But otherwise, because that one was different than the Demodogs. And now I'll tell you one thing that always creeps me out in horror movies or anything are eggs. I don't know why, just eggs freak me out. I don't think you haven't seen the Alien movies yet, have you? Because I know your mom and dad were watching them at some point. But anyway, eggs play a big part of those movies. And I'll tell you right now, that freaks me out. So when you first see the Demogorgon, he was eating an egg, or they said he was eating an egg. I don't think he was eating it. I think he was messing around with it. But then when Joyce and Hopper went in season 1 at the end, when they were going in for Will, they come across Barb, but they also come across this hatched egg. Things like that freak me out. But, so but it's basically saying there's still a lot of mystery to the Upside Down. So I don't know yet. I'd have to give it some thought if I buy into the Back to the Future / Demogorgon Russians from the future thing. But I'm not going to rule it out because we don't know much about the Upside Down. But personally, I guess if I had to take a stab at it, I just assumed, because, Elle was spying on the Russians. That was the whole reason that she, like, was getting these powers to begin with from, like, her evil dad, quote. I just think somehow it, like, retroactively, like, affected her, that somehow the Russians then found out, maybe through her, something gave them, who knows what experiments they've been doing, who knows what little girl they might have over there, or a little boy that has powers like Elle.
There's a very famous theory about the Upside Down. It's that the Upside Down is the future, and in 1986 there's almost a nuclear disaster, and like there's some theories that in season 4, 1986, since every season goes forward 1 year in the 80s, that in that year, something like the Demogorgon or the Mind Flayer or something from the Upside Down will just destroy it, and then the Upside Down is from the future as a nuclear wasteland from the future, from like 1996 or like 90 something Hawkins. So
Well, yeah, I think what you're referring to is the Chernobyl disaster that happened in Russia. That's in 1986, yeah, where they had a meltdown, and like you still can't even go there now. Like you can watch videos on YouTube, and it's horrifying. I mean, a different kind of horror, but like, yeah, it's you can't live there. They've seen, this makes a lot of sense now that you say it, and I think this is actually a really good theory because there's like a video of some like two-headed animal type beast that they've like filmed running through there, and it's obviously it just came about, but it's from like years of mutants and being affected by nuclear radiation and stuff like that. You have sort of mutant type creatures that breed at a certain point, and it's like this creature that looks like it has like a rabbit's head, but it's like giant, like a giant rabbit, but like with the body of a moose. Like they have pictures of this on the internet. Again, you never know if it's real or not. But yeah, in 1986, that's right. There was Chernobyl, the big nuclear thing. And it's very possible then, yeah, that the Upside Down, the Upside Down has been going backwards in time while we're going, 1983, 84. And, now it's just, it finally had crossed. And yeah, I gave it much thought. But now that you say it, I actually think that's a really good theory.
Another thing about season 4 teaser, is I watched a video about the breakdown of it, and there are a few Easter eggs. One on the right, you can see the Welcome to Hawkins sign, and then on the ground there's a newspaper, but couldn't see it. It's too hard to read. Left in the background, you can see Harbour's cabin, but right before it says we're not Hawkins anymore. The light flickers out, and then the most big thing I think is on the tree next to Stranger Things 4 is a clock with a blood stain on it. Right before it hits midnight, you hear the chime that says, "We're not in Hawkins anymore." So the theory is maybe season 4 has something to do with time travel.
Once you said, you remind me of Chernobyl, I'm like, yeah, that all kind of fits in now and makes sense. I mean, considering the whole concept of the Upside Down is negative energy, but then the opposite, I mean, yeah, that would make sense that time is going backwards and forwards, that time is sort of irrelevant in this other dimension. And I haven't seen the teaser yet, so I'll have to check it out. But yeah, I mean, that's the impression I'm getting from what you're saying.
In season 3, I did not like Max's character.
Oh, okay.
I did not mind that Max is like telling her there's more to boyfriends, but she did not have to, in my words, poison her with like dumping him. It was like that just like adds like a whole different problem, a whole different story that did not need to happen. I don't mind it happening, but it didn't need to happen if Max just didn't open her mouth at all.
Clarify for me, what exactly are you referencing to?
Max tells 11 about more to life than boys and stuff like that, but she didn't have to poison her about dumping Mike.
What do you mean by poison her? What did she say?
She said something like, if he doesn't apologize, dump him. And that's a good advice. That's good advice. But if 11 likes Mike, they don't have to break up.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes down to, everybody has their opinions in life, and 11 is very impressionable. So I would say Max should be more cautious with the words she uses, but Max also has had a lot of like negative influences in her life in terms of like her older brother Billy and stuff, which he's her stepbrother. So she's had to grow up a little bit being around him. And so she's, Max is kind of a pessimistic character. She's more of a half empty kind of gal. Elle, luckily, is the type she's impressionable, but once she makes up her mind about something, she will. And I think that even though Max giving this advice, I think Elle knows better in the end to follow her own heart. But yeah, we do need to think about the things that we say to other people, because as much as I like Max and Lucas together, they do have a very manipulative relationship with each other where it's always kind of a power play. they're all still growing up and learning. I think that you're pretty mature for your age, Brody, but it's still there's still things to be learned. And Max is giving information from her point of view, not still having grown up all the way yet.
Billy in season 3. In season 2, I hated Billy.
Mm-hmm.
Start of season 3, still hated Billy. I hated the scene where he dramatically walks through the pool, and I was like, I hate this scene so much. But through the season, I got more attached to Billy because I understood his pain, where he came from, and why he's so angry, and just that made his death perfect. Like, I didn't want him to die because of how attached I got, but that made his death perfect.
I 100% agree. I thought Billy was a great villain, and I thought Billy was a great hero. And linking that back to what we were just talking about, Max, I think that is the most valuable lesson from this show. And one of the most valuable life lessons is that we don't know what another person's experiences are. Billy, on the surface, he's this tough guy, wants everybody to like fear him, but also be attracted to him. And at the same time, though, that all stems from his relationship with his mother and how he lost her and how he's like been, his father was really hard on him and treated him horribly. He turned into this guy. I think going back to what we were just talking about with Max and her advice to Elle, Max might be giving, advice that you don't agree with, but you have to remember Max's like background herself. She's also from a broken family, it's the dad is really dysfunctional, where he like forces Billy to be nice to Max, which is good. He should be nice to Max, but like when you use physical violence to achieve that, it's only going to have bad effects. And so Max, even if she's not on the other end of that, she's not getting hit by this guy, she's seeing that violence, and so she's looking at it like her parents are broken up and she's had to toughen up a little bit. And so for her, she's kind of like, in order for her to keep her self-esteem, she would, if you don't treat me right, goodbye. But she has to learn the other half of that, which is she has to treat others right too, and can't just dangle over, if you don't treat me the way I want to be treated, I'm going to break up with you. But there's reasons why she is the way she is, and I think that's the ultimate lesson from the show, is that you can never know what another person is going through. And I think that ultimately becomes personified in Billy. He is a great villain, and he ends up being a great hero in the end.
One more thing from season 3 is there was a metaphor that I really liked, is when Elle is limping because of the thing that was in her leg because of the mind flayer. Max is holding her and Mike is holding her, kind of metaphorical that she wants to hang out with Mike, but she also got her advice from Max, so she's kind of like leaning towards them.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I love stuff like that, like symbolism, and I think you're 100% right, and that's very perceptive. The fact that she is, she's in the middle right now between Mike and Max, but I think what's being pushed out is that she's going to become her own self. She's going to become who she was always meant to be. But again, Elle also has her own experiences, her own past, a very traumatic past. And I think that's supposed to be, symbolic. Like you said, she's between those two worlds, but it's also like she pulls it out in the end, and she's the one who's going to figure out what's best for her. Even if you get bad advice, sometimes you can still pick some good from it. And I think that's what Elle is really good at doing. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us for another episode of 411 Pop Culture. Thank you, Brody, for joining me tonight to talk about Stranger Things.
You're welcome. It was very fun.
Absolutely. I think that you are very perceptive, and it was good. It was fun getting to, I think you're the perfect person for me to talk about this show with, because I came from it from one side and you came from it the complete opposite side. The upside down, if you will, where, this played a lot of nostalgic stuff for me, but for you, it's all new and fresh. And I think it's good to kind of come into the middle there and see what you feel about it, how I think about it. And I think that was pretty neat. But everybody out there, what did you think about Stranger Things? Are you ready for a season 4? What do you think about Murray's voicemail? Have you listened to it yet? And what do you think about Brody's theory of time travel? I think it's pretty interesting, especially once that puzzle piece of Sure and Noble fit in there. But let us know what you think. please comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.